What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Before You Deck. I'm your host, Orin, and today we are talking about a game that absolutely devoured my weekend on Steam Deck. I launched it just to test performance, and before I knew it, I had spent 5 straight hours arguing with my companions, looting goblin corpses, and convincing myself that I definitely didn't need to do my house chores. Today, we're diving into Baldur's Gate 3 and figuring out how well it plays, how well it runs, and whether it's worth experiencing this massive RPG on the deck in 2026. So sit back, relax, hit that like button, and let's jump right into it. Baldur's Gate 3 as a game on any platform is nothing short of incredible. It's easily one of the best RPGs ever made. Every choice feels meaningful, every character is memorable, and every quest goes in directions you didn't expect. The writing is sharp, the voice acting is top tier, and the level of freedom is unmatched. This is a world where you can solve a problem through dialogue, violence, stealth, trickery, or sometimes hilariously stupid improvisation that somehow works. The combat is tense and rewarding, mixing D&D mechanics with cinematic flair that makes every crit legendary, and every missed roll feels like a personal betrayal. And with its enormous branching paths, secrets, romances, great encounters, and the sheer amount of chaos you can unleash, Baldur's Gate 3 earns its reputation as a once-in-a-generation RPG. Now, when you take a game this big and this reactive and bring it onto the Steam Deck, something interesting happens. It becomes surprisingly cozy. The control layout Larian Studio design is one of the best in the genre. Radio menus make spells and items easy to access. The order is clean, camera movement feels smooth, and the trackpads on the deck makes precise cursor selection way easier than a normal controller. Even inventory management, usually the part where RPGs dread so much, feels manageable when you're playing on Steam Deck. Dialogue scenes look amazing on a small screen, and the voice acting pulls you in even more. Sitting back on the couch or lying in bed while making dialogue choices or exploring the world honestly feels like reading a fantasy novel that occasionally lets you throw someone off a cliff. Performance-wise, Baldur's Gate 3 runs far better on a Steam Deck than most people expect. It is best to start on low settings with textures and terrain set to medium. Also, I had ambient occlusion and bloom on. FSR 2.2 is 100% necessary as it does not run well natively without it. I normally hate FSR, but I think it's fine here. With these settings, Act 1 and Act 2 hover around 40 to 60 FPS, dipping slightly in heavy combat or densely populated areas. Act 3, the big city one, naturally hits the system the hardest, usually sitting in the 30 to 40 FPS range. Battles remain stable and dialogue scenes consistently look smooth. If you kept the system at 30 FPS, the game feels incredibly consistent and battery life becomes more predictable, usually around 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on where you are and how long you spend in big fights. The deck gets quite warm and the fan noise is very audible, as expected of a UE5 game. The OLED model in particular handles the game beautifully with improved contrast and slightly better thermals. You can expect the deck to pull around 22 to 26 watts during gameplay, which is very demanding on a Steam Deck. Visual settings like shadows and ambient occlusion can make a noticeable difference in both visuals and performance, and using FSR balance gives you a nice mix of sharpness and smoothness. The important part is that once everything is tuned, the game feels stable, responsive, and way more visually impressive than you would expect from a handheld. But the real question is Baldur's Gate 3 actually fun on the Steam Deck? The answer is absolutely. This game somehow becomes even more immersive when it's portable. The long dialogue sequences feels like reading chapters in a book. Exploring the Underdark at night with the lights off feels almost too atmospheric. Managing a party, spells, gear, and quests becomes a chill loop you can do anywhere. And with the deck's sleep and resume function, Baldur's Gate 3 transforms from a massive 100-hour epic into a game you can chip away at breaks, commutes, or nighttime sessions. It stops feeling like a big commitment and instead becomes a story you can drop in and out whenever you want. So, should you get Baldur's Gate 3 on a Steam Deck? If you do not care what it looks like, then yes, you absolutely should. It runs far better than I expected. The controls feel refined and the portability adds a whole new layer of comfort and enjoyment. The colors look stunning on this OLED model, and the ability to pause anywhere, resume anywhere, and progress through this massive adventure at your own pace makes the deck one of the best platforms to experience it on. Whether you are diving into every romance option, exploring every branching path, or just trying to see what kind of chaos your party can survive, the Steam Deck turns Baldur's Gate 3 into a surprisingly intimate and incredibly enjoyable experience. However, if you care what it looks like, I don't recommend it. The PC version will always look better and run smoother than a Steam Deck. Because I played it originally on my PC with max settings, it kinda took me some time to adjust to the huge dip in visual quality. Alright everyone, that's gonna wrap up my Steam Deck review of Baldur's Gate 3. If this video helped you out or convinced you to start a new campaign on a Steam Deck, thank you so much for watching. If you want more Steam Deck reviews about the latest games on the deck, you know what to do. This is Before You Deck and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man.